everyone. I am as Divishri, second year student of Delhi Metropolitan Education. Welcome you all to the 36th episode of Vibrant India series. I also welcome all our viewers who are watching us live on Facebook. Vibrant India series VIS is an initiative of DME Media School for celebrating 75 years of India's independence. The series will be an year-long exercise. As a part of this series, we invite inspiring personalities for online talk, interview, and interaction with our students. The invited personalities for this series are from all walks of life and from all parts of the country. And today, our special guest is Mr. Aditya Arya. I would like to take a moment and introduce Delhi Metropolitan Education to our viewers. Delhi Metropolitan Education, DME, is an A-grade premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, New Delhi, and approved by the Bar Council of India. The institute offers BBA, BA LLB, and BBA LLB with BCI approval and BA programs. DME believes in imparting world-class education to its students while training them to develop and enhance their skills. This education and training enables them in taking up challenges of the industry and creating a space for themselves with their competence and vigor. DME Media School is one of the most promising media institutes in the country. It offers BA in journalism and mass communication. It is recognized as a school focused on the growth of its faculty and students through academic and co-curricular activities. Major flagship events and initiatives of the school include BG Varghese Lecture Series, Peer-to-Peer FDP, International Film Festival SIFI, International Conference ICANN, and Ritika Convention of Media Students. And newly added on the list is VIS Vibrant India Series. It is our privilege to introduce you, our guest, the personality of the 36th episode of the VIS.
Aditya Arya, an eminent commercial and travel photographer. Aditya Arya began professional photography in 1980 after graduating in history from St. Stephen's College, Delhi University. He wears many hats and has been a still photographer in the film industry in early 80s. Over the last few years, he has been completely immersed in the subject and practice of photographic conservation. At present, while also actively pursuing his professional advertising and commercial assignments, he divides his time between his photography archive and museum camera, the only photography and camera museum in India, with more than 2,000 rares and iconic cameras and other equipments. This museum traces the history of photography from 1870s to the digital era. Aditya sir has been on the jury of the National Art Exhibition 2014 organized by Lalit Kala Academy and many other national shows. He has also been curated several shows of archival and contemporary visual works, both nationally and internationally, including the National Gallery of Modern Art, New Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and the National Museum, New Delhi, Salarganj Museum, Hyderabad, and several galleries and museums in Canada, London, France, and Spain. He was a guest faculty at Sri Aurobindo Center of Art and Communication and also previously at the Jamia Millia Islamia University's Institute of Mass Communication. He was also a mentor at Habitat Photosphere, a photography festival initiative by Visual Arts Gallery, Indian Habitat Center. He was also the director at the Academy of Photographic Excellence, one of India's leading photography academies, based in New Delhi, and a guest fellow and curator at the Indian Institute of Advanced Study, Shimla. I now request the technical team to show some glimpse from his life.
Today. It is indeed an honor to host you. I now request Dr. Manasvi Maheshwari, Associate Professor, DME Media School, to welcome the guest.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome everybody in episode 36 of Vibrant India series. We launched this digital program on August 9 in 2021 on the anniversary of Quit India movement. Vibrant India series is a tribute to all those people who made supreme sacrifices for the independence of our motherland. India will be completing 75 years of independence this year. We started celebrations last year only. This program has been launched as a part of these celebrations. In the first episode of Vibrant India series, our guest was Brigadier P.K. Saxena, who served the country in 2 wars. Following this, Madam Bhavreen Kandhari, a known and environmental activist, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, senior media educator and columnist based in Kolkata, Dr. Nakul Parashar, science communicator and director of Vigyan Prasar, Dr. Monisha Behel, social activist from Northeast based in Tejpur, Mr. Rajesh Badal, senior journalist, writer, filmmaker, and broadcaster. Colonel R.K. Dargan, professor and advisor at Amity School of Communication, Amity University, Noida, graced this program. To name the other celebrated personalities in this series, Mr. Ashish Kulkarni, the pioneer of animation industry in India, based in Mumbai, Madam Tripti S. Singhal, an entrepreneur and startup consultant, Captain Dharamveer Singh, a versatile personality and an army man, Madam Jyotika Kalra, member of National Human Rights Commission, Mr. Sanjay Banerjee, a sports journalist, broadcaster, and commentator, Mr. Agustin Vela, communication specialist with UNICEF, Captain Indrani Singh, a pilot and entrepreneur, Ms. Vibha Lakera, a social activist, Mr. Arvind Gaur, a theatre personality, Mr. Sachidanand Joshi, a writer and educational administrator, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni from the Indian Army, Dr. Gurmeet Singh, author and global Hindi educator, Squadron Leader Prerna Chaturvedi, a veteran of Indian Air Force, were our guest. Since the beginning of 2022, Mr. Shambhunath Shukla, senior journalist, columnist, and author, Mr. Lakshmi Vajpayee, an eminent poet, commentator, and broadcaster, Sufi Sayyid Azmal Nizami, custodian of Sufi Dargah, Nizamuddin Aulia, Dr. Dev Baikat, media educator from University of North Carolina in US, Ms. Pallavi Faujdar, an adventure motorcyclist and social worker, Mr. S.P. Rawal, an entrepreneur, author, and philanthropist, Dr. Mridula Tandon, doctor, social worker, and entrepreneur, Mr. Virinder Kumar Gaur, retired Inspector General of BSF, author, and Mr. Ashok Pradhan, bureaucrat, educationist, and social worker, Dr. Mridula Seth, mental health advocate, social activist, Mr. Balendu Sharma Darij, a digital media expert and an advocate of Hindi and other Indian languages, Group Captain Ashok K. Chordia, an Indian Air Force veteran, Dr. Daurab Ghosh, a scientist and professor in IIT Delhi, Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha, Director of Indian Law Institute, have graced the Vibrant India series. In the making of this country, we all play our roles as soldier, doctor, engineer, educator, journalist, lawyer, environmental activist, social activist, as science communicator, filmmaker, as human rights protector, sports personality, writer, lawyer, theater, artist, mental health advocate, and promoter of Indian culture and languages. Today, in episode 36, we have with us inspiring personality, Mr. Aditya Arya, an eminent photographer and founder director of Museo Camera. Welcome, Mr. Arya, in Vibrant India series. Welcome you all.
Thank you very much. I feel honored to be part of this initiative of yours. It sounds so inspiring. And I'm going to actually log in and hear about the other famous people. I don't know whether I fit to be, I deserve to be on this, but some of those people you mentioned are...
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, no, it's indeed a matter of honor for us that you have agreed to be part of this series. We have very carefully chosen our personalities who are really inspirational. I mean, nothing is to be proved about their status or their contribution to the society, and all good people have obliged us to be there, to be part of this series. And I know the kind of work that you have been doing, and this is unparalleled. Nobody else has done the kind of work that you have done. So you are the most distinguished person in your own field, and particularly we are a media institution, and these students and the teachers who are there in this session, they belong to journalism, mass communication, all aspects of media. And the BAJMC program, the bachelor's program in journalism and mass communication that we run in DME Media School, that also has a paper on photography. So all the students are either studying or will be studying this particular paper. So it's a subject of great interest for everybody whosoever is there in this crowd, and everybody is so excited to listen to you in this session. And Mr. Arya, as you already know about the format of the program, if I can tell you a little bit about that. We will start with your address, with your talk, wherein we will be requesting you to speak for 15-20 minutes and narrating your journey, because that is something which is inspiring. Each student in the young age plans so many things and is interested in so many areas, but how to decide as to which areas to be chosen and why. And then once you have done that, then a lot of problems and challenges come in. How to overcome those problems, how to pursue your profession, your passion, and to do something which satisfies yourself and which is also contributing to the society. So that is all is the basic nature of the program. And I will request you, while you are narrating your journey, also share with us the problems and the challenges that you had, and then how you came out with all that, and how you are pursuing your passion till date, to the extent that you have created something which is for all future generations to see and get inspiration from. And that will be followed by another segment wherein I will be asking you certain questions based on whatever you would have spoken to, a certain more elaboration on certain things. And then finally, in the last segment, we will be taking up the questions from the students. So that's the complete format of the program, and we'll try to finish this whole program in 50 minutes or so. So in the first segment, then I will request Mr. Arya to please narrate your life journey for all those who are there in this session and who are eager to listen to you.
Thank you very much. Uh, you know, photography is an amazing profession. It takes you to just about all kind of places where a normal person is unable to go to. And that's the idea of becoming a photographer. I used to read National Geographic, and I used to find it very inspirational. And I'm talking about 70s, when there was no TV, when there was no internet, there was no Facebook, there was no Google. So, and I said, wow, what a amazing life is led by photographers exploring the world while being on the job. So it was these inspirational stories which actually influenced me to become a photographer. And there was no place to learn photography in 70s. So I'm a self-taught photographer, and carried bags for some senior photographers initially. So the story started in 1980, and I learned everything on the job. And so whenever I could not find answers for anything, the best place to go to was the library. There was no Google. There was nobody to ask an answer. So one had to go to the library, sit there, go through encyclopedias, and find the answer. So, and life was slow. There was ample opportunity to learn, to experiment. I find today people are in a great hurry to do everything. because there's always an answer available for everything on your fingertips. So the slow learning taught us a lot more. It took us into the depths of learning process. Information had to be actually excavated. One had to go and meet people to find answers. People didn't have phones. So you couldn't just call up somebody and say, you had to write letters to people. This is what my idea is. This is what I want to work on. I have a few questions. And it was amazing how actually people responded. There was no email. So it used to take months, days to get your answers. And I think that is where the beauty of the whole process lies. And so the first initial years was spent as a travel photographer, as an industrial photographer. India was just about opening up, new industries were being set up. It was a land of opportunity. I'm talking about 80s. And one was shooting in coal mines and iron steel plants, and then slowly the automobile industry came. People wanted to show their factories, so it was a great time to explore all those. Then in 90s, the production started, and another phase of one's life started, which was shooting products. And one shot all kind of products, from motorcycles to cars to Xerox machines. And as a photographer, one had to learn, and one had to learn constantly how things worked, how technology worked. And then came 2000, which was how the services started. So there we had to actually uh, create campaigns about the services. So, in this whole trajectory of one's life over 40 years, one saw how the industrial revolution took place in India, how the services evolved, how the products evolved. So, as a photographer, one was able to experience the making of India. Uh, and I and this journey was very interesting because um, I was a student of history, and while exploring, I must tell you one thing. Uh, except for two states in the country, Mizoram and Arunachal, there is no state, there is no big town in this country where I have not lived or worked. So, the opportunity to see the country, to explore, meet people, that's been a great learning experience. And being a student of history, I realized whenever I traveled abroad, museums fascinated me. And I realized we didn't have a museum of photography in India. And that's what got me thinking. I said, and meanwhile, I was collecting cameras. I ended up collecting more than 5,000 cameras, starting from cameras made in 1860. So, and all this stuff was accumulating in my basements. And but the sheer fascination of understanding these machines, how technology evolved, uh, and this opportunity which came through one of the most unique public-private partnership in India, which is Museo Camera. So what is Museo Camera? So the Museo Camera actually traces the history of photography, how the silver grains turned into the pixels of today. Uh, Many of you may not know what silver grains are, but the film is made out of silver grains. So, and this opportunity was unique. It got me again thinking, and I went back into the books and into the libraries, and now, of course, with the availability of information on Google, that's how I created the museum. I firmly believe if you have an idea, you can do anything. You just have to study and to learn. You don't have to hire consultants, but you can do anything. Um, this museum, which is unique, uh, is aimed at all students like you who need to understand how did photography start? How was the first image created? And how did the technology evolve? And so this is my gift to the photography community, to the society, the Museo Camera. And I would like to invite all of you one day to visit the museum and experience it for yourself. And it's a great place to for learning. See, museums are all about learning. Museums are experiential. They're not what museums used to be earlier. There was a time when museums were popularly known in Hindi as Ajaib Ghars. So, Ajaib Ghars are uh, where strange things were stored. अजीबो गरीब चीजें रखी जाती थी, but our museum is more about how things evolved, and it's very important to understand the history of various processes and products and how they have continued to shape our future vision, because museums take you into past and help you think about the future. So this has briefly been my journey. I'll be happy to dive into more details as and when you raise.
One thing as you said, one thing is very strange and then people find it difficult to understand. You have been a student of history. So what happened that you became a photographer?
History is about places, it's about events, and photography actually takes you to those places and makes you part of those events also. Yeah. Whatever you're seeing today will be history tomorrow. So photographers are actually visual historians. Whatever you are shooting today, if I am shooting in a factory, believe me, 100 years from now, people will be studying those pictures and saying, oh my God, this is how the factories actually worked in those days. So whatever I've shot 40 years has immense historical significance. And we also deal at the museum with a lot of archives. We have archives of all kinds. We have one of the biggest archive of freedom movement. So photographers are constantly creating visual archives.
Yeah. So once you join photography as a hobby, and then later on, obviously, it has to be your profession as well, because once you are into some passion, whichever passion you are pursuing, you have to be self-sustained also. And in photography also, it's an expensive thing. So obviously, you need money to pull on and to do the things that you want to do. How did you manage all that?
Life was very different and life was very difficult. But believe me, I come from the times and backgrounds where people were uh, not in a hurry. You know, to me, uh, money was never the end. It was just, I mean, I've collected these thousands of cameras. People say, hey, these must have cost you crores. I said, yeah, this is my lifetime's earning. But uh, I don't think so. You should be driven by the idea of money. I mean, I never had money. I come from a background. My father was a professor in Delhi University, and in 60s, believe me, the salaries were few hundred rupees. But the whole emphasis on learning was so high. I mean, coming from a background of education, I mean, my mom was a teacher in school. My father was a professor in Delhi University. But so it was all about learning. It's all about education, how you brought up.
But then what was your response? What was the response of your father when he came to know that you are going to be a photographer instead of becoming a professor, or anything actively involved in education?
No, my parents believed in you have to carve out your own path. You have to be the creator of your own journey. So there was absolutely no interference from that side. Absolutely none.
Were there
And I,
any such junctures in your life when you start thinking whether it's the right thing that you are pursuing?
many every day you say, hey, have I made the right decision? And when you see your friends, colleagues, and becoming IS officers and becoming bank officials and drawing, and you were making in 1980s, you were making few hundred rupees, and they were already making thousands. Yes, it made you think, what's going to happen? But I always believe that you have to follow your own path. Um, you have to just be dedicated towards whatever you wish to do. Things happen.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
you have to.
Yeah, the important thing that you said that the things were slow, but that was a very conducive atmosphere for learning. Now it's completely changed. You already said, and we all understand that the time has completely changed. Now, in today's time, since students are studying photography, they also want to practice photography. Now, what kind of advice will you be giving to them in a different time? You started at a different time, practices in a different time, and now it's a different time, and this digital technology is also to the help of everybody. So how do you look at the present scenario, and what kind of advice would you like to give to these young people?
So the present scenario is very sad. I'm sorry to say that people are in a great hurry. It's like by the time they're 30, they should be the MD of a company. It's everybody wants to be on a fast track, which is it's not about it's the gauges, the parameters, everything has changed of what a successful life is, what success is all about. It's not about what you have created. It's about how much you have accumulated. That's where the issues are. It's I keep telling people, till they are 30, they shouldn't even bother. It's about experiences. I mean, don't accumulate wealth. Think in terms of accumulation of experiences. How much experience do you have? Wealth, money, these things can follow, but it's about, have you experienced life? Have you really gone into the depths of um, information? How much do you know? So there's ample time, but the problem is, I come from the time when there were no distractions. uh, there was no social media. There were no pubs and clubs, very few. Uh, in 60s, whenever I had free time, I used to go to the Delhi University library, just go through books and pore over articles and magazines and search for information. And I I miss all that now because information is available instantaneously. But that information stayed with me. I still remember the pages of those books. But do you remember the Google pages? No. You read and you move on. They don't stay with you for too long. Those books, I can tell you, oh, just open that book there's a chapter on that. You love it. It talks about this. Books, the physicality of that experience stays with you.
But then, Mr. Arya, the time has changed. The young people have digital technology to their disposal, so they are making use of it. They are enjoying it. What is wrong in that?
No, there's nothing wrong in it, but if you pour too much of information too fast, it doesn't stay. The retention, I mean, can you really retain that kind of information? There is an overload of information today to sieve, to actually figure out how much you need, um, how much you have to discard. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Like there is an overload of
Yeah.
images. There is the overload of constant information.
So can I ask you here, Mr. Arya, since we are more interested in knowing about photography, so how the photography has changed from the earlier time to the present?
So the slowness of photography is very important to understand. The analog, how it used to take hours to create one picture. When the first image was taken, can I just show you that image?
Yes, sir.
This is the first image, which was actually clicked by Joseph Nicéphore Niepce. It took him 8 hours to create this image. And then the idea of photography was born. And believe me, the story of photography, how analog is all about pre-visualization. Why? Because before you click the button, you have to pre-visualize the image. You have to know what kind of tonal quality will come, how the light is falling. Because there is one button which was not there in the analog times. And if I was to ask that question to your audience, I doubt how many of them will be able to answer that question, will be able to answer that. That button, you'll be amazed, has actually changed the way we look at things. And that button is delete button. It's delete which has changed photography, because there was no delete button. You could not delete anything. You could only move forward. When you had to create an image with a camera like this, and it used to take hours to click one image, you had to be so careful. You had to pre-visualize your image. You had to know about the tonal quality, everything. And you had to coat your own glass plate, because you knew there was no second chance. What digital has done is it's made photography available to everyone. It has democratized the process of photography, but in the process, the idea of perfection has been overlooked. Why? Because I know that I can shoot 5,000 images on my chip, and I can delete the ones which are bad. And also, if I still don't get a perfect picture, I can always do a Photoshop. So where is the idea of a perfect image? Now, let me tell you another thing. Photography was created and actually respected a lot more. Photography stood for truth. When you could take a picture and take it to the court of law and say, "Me Lord, I have this picture to prove this." Today you do that, me Lord will say, "Throw this man out." Photography is not about truth anymore. Photography is suspect today because it can be manipulated. You see how the journey of photography has been evolving for something which it used to take hours to produce. It had first created in your mind, and then you click the button. Today, it takes a second. So the journey of photography has been, and this is what this museum is all about. It traces the journey of photography, of how actually the technology has shaped the images, because a lot of curators don't understand something which is very vital to photography. It is because of the technology, the images have been constantly changing. Now, for an example, let me show you these amazing images. These are original prints, egg albumin prints, which were actually photographed in 1860s and 70s. And for a project called People of India. Now, these are original egg albumin prints. Now, you see how frozen these characters are. And it's not that they did not want to smile. It's the technology which did not allow them to smile. You know why? All of you know what the word ISO means. It defines the sensitivity of the film. It's same as ASA. Today is called ISO. You'll be surprised to know what was the ISO during this time. Would you like to make a guess? Any guess? So, in 19th century, the ISO, when these pictures were being shot, was 3. It used to take half a minute, 1 minute, 10 seconds, 15 seconds for single exposure. So people had to be absolutely frozen. Now you see, when you know technology and when you understand technology, you will start appreciating the images better. So the idea of this museum is also to help people understand the art of photography, and for practitioners to understand the history of photography. So the first, one of the earliest cameras we have in our collection is this one. This is from 1860. This is a daguerreotype camera, and that's a daguerreotype picture.
So students, please come on camera who want to ask the questions.
I think they all need to come to the museum to experience the museum.
Yeah, definitely. I myself are so keen, but somehow I have not been able to make it till date. I will also come.
You're most welcome. So this, I mean, the museum is, it's, I mean, the whole inspiration of this
Yes.
museum. This is the story of my profession. This is the story of how photography has been evolving. And, whenever I traveled abroad, I thought, how come we don't have museums like this in India? I said, okay, I'm going to make one. And believe me, it's so many people helped me, they joined and they contributed to the making of this museum.
Yeah, Khushi, are you asking students questions? Tell me fast.
Yes, sir. So my question is, how can we learn more about analog photography in the current times in universities?
Okay, so you'll be surprised. We have a dark room, we have a lab, and on the weekends we do workshops for college students and enthusiasts. We give them a role of we give them analog camera where they actually shoot and process their own film and make their own print. So, photography was all about touch and feel. Today, you cannot touch pixels. But we come from the generation where we could touch negatives. And so today's generation has not seen negatives or prints, the silver prints. So how the touch and feel of this photography, the tactile experience has actually become a virtual experience. It's amazing. It's sometimes like today, I spent my morning hours in the dark room making a print. It is such a satisfying experience when you actually develop your print and you see the image emerge.
Yeah. So Khushi, you have to go to the museum to have that kind of experience with the blessings of Mr. Arya.
Yes, yes, I will. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, Sandeep, ask your question.
Sir, do you think we could go back to analog technology, and as a student, we learn more about how to learn more about analog photography?
So, Sandeep, very interesting question. I'll add to that question. Is there a need for analog? Do you need to learn analog? And I would say yes and no at the same time. Why? For professional reasons, analog is not needed anymore. But it's a way, it's like learning the history of your profession, photography, and it's also become an art form today. And it's a very interesting, meditative, slow process. When you will spend hours, days shooting a 36 exposure film, which cost 800 rupees today or 1000 rupees, and then make one perfect print out of that, you will appreciate the technology. You will, it's like relishing slow cooking. You know, you say today, sir, this is a slow cooked food. This is a slow cooked dish. It takes 6 hours to cook this dish, but look at the taste of this dish. Look at the feel of this dish. It's like that.
Yeah. Shiksha, will you ask the question?
So in today's fast moving world, there is no time. My client wants to see an image urgently. He needs it across the continents. He needs it in America. There is no time to waste on analog. But it's again about slow cooking and relishing that.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on, Shikha.
Yes, Shiksha.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is that I want to learn how photography has changed around time and how we perceive that what art is.
Sorry, what is the second? How we perceive?
That what art is. The art in photography, how can we perceive that?
So as I said, the image was created here before you press the button. That was the art. So today, the post, you can do anything. Today, the post-production offers you unlimited opportunities to sit and constantly keep changing the tonal quality, to change the image colors. But in the analog times, the photographer created the image and pressed the button. And it helps you understand how the technology has been evolving when there was no Photoshop. And maybe I've left the first half unanswered. Can you repeat your question?
I think, Mr. Arya, that was the same thing which you have already answered.
Yeah.
About the digital and the analog. I mean, already covered that. We can take up another question by Shashank. Shashank?
Hello, sir. So, I have two questions. So, what inspired you to make the photography museum, first of all? And, sir, as you showed us camera of 1835, from which type of camera you started the photography, and what difficulties do you face? So, did you face?
Very interesting. I started with a camera called Zeiss Icon, which could only take 12 pictures at a time. So one roll of film had 12 shots which were possible. And I have that camera. Let me show it to you. You will laugh at it. Don't laugh. It's really an old camera. And what difficulties? Oh my God. So let me. That's my first camera, which I got at the age of maybe I was 16 or 17. My dad's Zeiss Icon, and you see, and you'll laugh at it, and you'll say this is very primitive. So, but it taught me many things. So you had another.
Yeah, another question was, he asked, what inspired you to set up this museum?
I feel it's very important to share knowledge. And the museum is all about, museum is a repository of knowledge. So it is not only about the objects, it's about the history of the objects. It's about connecting the dots. Heart led to what? And that is interesting. So I'm a great believer that like you are I mean, Dr. Ambrish Saxena, you are a professor, teacher, lecturer. You love to share your ideas. You love to share with your students. Similarly, after 40 years in this profession, I think uh, time had come for me to step into another zone, which is about sharing. And that was, I like to talk to school children. Sometimes I personally take them around. I mean, fifth graders, sixth graders, and I talk to them about how do they see things, how photography evolved. It's about sharing.
Yeah. So this last question by Vinayak. Vinayak, ask your question fast.
Yes, sir. Sir, as we all know, the pandemic had created a huge impact on all the sectors. So, how was photography prominent in during the pandemic?
Very interesting question, Vinayak. So I did two things during the lockdown. Firstly, I approached the government and I said, I want to move around Gurgaon every day. I want to document how I call that project the stillness of the Millennium City. You know, the Millennium City, which was buzzing always, was still. There was silence. And I believe, if I show you those images, you'll be amazed. There was not a soul on the roads. The streets were deserted. I documented something called the stillness of the Millennium City. Secondly, during the lockdown, I encouraged close to 500 photographers on social media to shoot and document. And we created, when the lockdown was lifted, the first lockdown after 6 months, we actually created a very big exhibition called Lockdown Diaries, where people shot their bedrooms, the images from their balconies, from their grilled windows, what life was all about. So I am constantly thinking of doing things, and these were the two big projects which we did during the lockdown.
So that is how we come towards the end of this program. It was such an interesting session. Otherwise, also photography is such an interesting subject. Then and the way Mr. Arya, you showed the whole museum, that was so engrossing. And it was always, I mean, we're always eager to know more and more. So definitely you'll be coming to your museum someday. The important thing which I have noted down, whatever you were telling the session, certain important things I was noting down, which was really very interesting. One thing, as you said, photographers are the visual historians. So we always think as to what exactly is the purpose of photography. But then if you are taking some picture today, that will become a history for tomorrow, and people will come to know as to what all was there in the society, what kind of people existed in that time of period. That's really a beautiful quote, I would say. And another thing that you said just now, and I can relate to that, as you said, once you are working in a field for 30-40 years, then obviously you think that there is something to give back to the society, and to share all that work, all that experience that you have with you, with the younger generations. In fact, in education, we are doing all the time this only. We are trying to impart all that to the young students, which we have. So it's always a feeling of giving to somebody which you know and which can benefit the younger generation, which can benefit the society and the country. So with this, we finish this session, and I'm really grateful with the core of my heart, Mr. Aditya, that despite your so busy schedule, you could spare time for us, for our students, and enlightened us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saxena. This was a very small glimpse, and there is a lot more to show and experience here, and be my guest.
Thank you.
The first impression that comes to our mind about any college: tall buildings, big classrooms, large lobby areas, thick books, IT labs, assignments, class tests, and projects. Nothing besides that. Every hour, minute, second spent here help us carving and shaping our persona, cultivating innovative mindsets for the challenging world. Learning is a lifelong process. Sharing knowledge, inculcating values of life, spark the innovative horizons of mind. Fun and frolic is the nature of every nook and corner here. A daily dose of thrill we are sure to get here.